All right, this video is on lesson 7, toxicity. So before we talk about how to calculate toxicity, let's talk about a more general question. Which is more toxic? So shampoo or gasoline? Well, let's say I give you the LD50 or lethal dose 50 of gasoline, and that's 5 milliliters. Shampoo's lethal dose 50 or LD50 is 1,288 milliliters per kilograms. So that's, let's say I have a mouse that weighs exactly 1 kilogram or 2.2 pounds, right? If I give this mouse 5 milliliters of gasoline, it's probably going to die. As opposed to giving this mouse 5 milliliters of shampoo, it's probably still going to live because I would need to give it 1,288 milliliters of shampoo for it to really hurt the mouse. Not that you want to hurt any mice, but hypothetically speaking. So in general, the smaller your LD50 number is, the more toxic it is. So below right here, just to remind you that there are lots of things that are toxins and they cause a lot of different types of damage, things like that. Potentially everything is a toxin. It just depends on how much you need to take for it to actually be lethal, right? You can think of even sugar is a toxin. You don't need to write this down in your notebook. It's not really necessary, but you do need to write down this next few parts, right? So how do we measure toxicity? Toxicity is measured by something called LD50, as I mentioned earlier. So it's the amount of toxin needed to be lethal for 50% of the individuals tested. So if I test 10 people and I give them all 5 milliliters of gasoline, and out of those 10 people, 5 people died, that is your LD50, right? So let's do a practice problem. So how much caffeine would be lethal for a person that's 120 pounds, right? The LD50 of caffeine is approximately 150 milligrams per kilograms. So let's write out everything I know first, right? So I know that I have a 120 pound person, and I know that the LD50 of caffeine is 150 milligrams per kilogram. And this kilogram represents the weight of the person or thing that's taking in the poison. So something you should notice right away is that pounds and kilograms are not the same units. And if they're not the same units, you need to change either this to pounds or change the pound to kilograms. In this case, it's much easier to change the pounds to kilograms. Plus, we're doing science, so you want to change everything to metric units anyways, right? So your step 2 would be to match the units or change this pound to kilogram so we can do the conversion. So I'm going to start with 120 pounds, right? That's my next step, over 1. It's the same thing as 120 pounds, it's just written in a different way. Then you're going to multiply by the ratio. So whatever goes in here is your ratio from kilograms to pounds or pounds to kilograms. The tricky part, just ignore that happened. The tricky part is figuring out what number goes on top and what number goes on bottom for my ratio. So here in the hints, I'm given the ratio. So I know that 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds. So if I want to end up with kilograms, because I want to match it to the LD50 units, don't need the S at the end. So if I want to end it at kilograms, I need to get rid of the unit pounds. Right? So you might have remembered from middle school math that you just need to cross multiply. So your unit for pounds needs to go in the bottom so they can cross out. Right, so it's 120, and the number that goes with pounds based off of this ratio is 2.2. Right, and my other ratio is just 1 kilogram. So if I do the math, it would be 120 times 1 kilogram divided by 2.2. Right, that should get me 54.5 kilograms. So this is the weight of the person right now in a different unit. So if I wanted, I could even rewrite this whole thing and say 54.5 kilogram. So next thing I need to do is to find out how much caffeine would I actually need to consume for this caffeine to kill me if I weighed 120 pounds, right? This 150 milligrams only counts if you weigh 1 kilogram, but I weigh 54.5 times more than that. So the last thing to do is just to multiply the person's weight by the LD50. So lethal dosage is just the same as LD50. So in this case, the person's weight is 54.5 kilograms. We're on step 3. And you're going to multiply it by the LD50, which is 150 milligrams per kilograms. This is the same thing as this part. I'm just writing it differently. So if I take these two, 54.5 kilograms multiplied by 150, I'm left with 8,175 milligrams, right? Because my kilograms or my mass cancels out. So 8,175 milligrams of caffeine will be lethal for someone that weighs 120 pounds or 54.5 kilograms. They're the same weight or same mass, right? Just two different units of expressing it. So below right here, I have some practice problems for you to try. Again, the answer key is going to be on chemistry daily classwork, probably the next day after I make this video due, right?